it's time for another little mini-series. It's been a few months probably since I last did one. So in case you've forgotten, this is where I look at 5 themed games, all around a similar theme, all released by Mastertronic. And the theme of this mini-series is arcade conversions. So we're going to look at games which originated in the arcade and were converted to the Commodore 64 and released by Mastertronic, eventually in some cases. And the first of those games is Continental Circus, which was originally released by Virgin and then obviously came out on their Mastertronic Plus packaging later on. So let's load it up and take a look. So here's the front cover of the game, and it's your normal Mastertronic Plus packaging. I assume this was the original cover art from the Virgin release. Nothing too spectacular going on there. It's got the Continental Circus logo and a car with a Taito branding on the front there, and also Virgin. If we zoom in a little bit there, and the spine's pretty bland. It's got a $2.99 pricing on it. Just says Continental Circus in a pretty normal sort of a font. And on the back we've got some screenshots, which, as it says there, may be taken from a different version, and I think that's probably the case because these would be very impressive Commodore 64 screenshots. I suspect they're probably from the Amiga conversion. Nice racetrack view there, and a bit of a blurb. Experience all the thrills of the arcade original as you stretch your driving skills to the limit. 8 circuits have to be conquered in a series of grueling races. And there's also a quote there from Zero magazine: unbelievably addictive. I guess that's 90% overall. Pretty cool. Inside the inlay, of course, we have some instructions. Pretty simple stuff. Your aim is simple: prove to the racing world in general that you have the skills and experience to drive Formula 1 machines. Blah blah blah, and then it tells you about the challenge, 8 races, etc. run on different tracks. And then inside we've got some notes about driving skills, simple controls, avoid collisions, makes sense. And then it's got some loading instructions, some controls, and then some foreign language instructions, which also has the controls in the foreign language, which is quite nice. And as you can see there at the bottom, copyright there, Taito Corporation 1988, that's the original arcade game, and Virgin Mastertronic for the computer release. Here's the loading screen then, pretty unspectacular really. It's got the Continental Circus logo and a racing car, and all the logos of the people involved with the development. So you've got the Taito logo on the bottom left. Not quite sure what that one is there. Looks like it says Wave or something like that. You've got the sales curve mentioned at the top there. They're the people who developed the game. And you've got all the programmer names there as well. Nothing too much to write home about. So the game's loaded, and as you can see there's a high score table being displayed on the screen in typical arcade game style. That's pretty much it. There's no title screen to speak of. It just goes in a moment into a introductory rolling demo of the gameplay. What I'm going to do before I start playing the game myself is actually show a little clip of the arcade version. Here we go into that demo. So I'm going to show a little clip of the arcade version so that you can see what that looks like, and then we can compare this to it. So that's what the arcade version of the game looks like. Let's now take a look at the gameplay of this Commodore 64 conversion. So as you can see, it starts up with the course that you're on, Brazil, and your current ranking is 100, and you've got to, within the space of 3 laps I think it is, get into 80th place or higher. So it's a typical Formula 1 racing game. Pretty simplistic controls. It's just forward to accelerate, down to brake, left and right, and fire button changes gear. You've only got 2 gears, 1 and 2. I'm currently in second gear and going 370 kilometers an hour. So you've got to get around the course in enough time to make it into the top 80. That then progresses you to the next course. Graphics are pretty decent. Reasonable illusion of speed created by the classic red and white. That was a checkpoint there, just like in the arcade version. Classic red and white stripes down the side of the road, and I've just accidentally hit a billboard, so that's allowed me to pull into the pit. You can see I'm smoking there, and if you pull into the pit, these guys fix your car and off you go again. That might result in me not qualifying now, as I only got a lap and a half to make up 15 places. Pretty much if you crash you've got no chance. So as I was saying, graphics are pretty decent, about as good as the Commodore 64 is going to do. Pretty decent movement of the car. Nice track. The track undulates quite nicely, just like in the arcade version. The pit lane's not quite as impressive looking. Obviously the graphics are as good as they're going to get, as just mentioned. So I'm rattling around the track. I don't think I'm going to make it, but I have just got into 83rd position. What you'll see in a minute is this, that smoke coming out of the engine is now developed into a fire, and the race is now on to see if I can get to the end of the track before. Oh, look at that, finished 81st place. That's really annoying. So if I hadn't gone into the pit, I would have probably completed the game, but I would have exploded. So it shows you how far you got around the course, which was basically to the end, and just missed out on qualifying by 1 position. So as with an arcade game, you get the chance to continue on this level. Not a lot of point wasting a continue when I was only on level 1 anyway. So what I'm going to do is give it another go. Got my initials in. Again, this is very similar to the arcade version where you put your initials in at the top here. And it adds them to the scoreboard. So it's very faithful to the arcade version as much as a Commodore 64 can be. So what I'm going to do now is try that first level again, hopefully qualify for the second stage and show a bit of that. So I'm heading for qualification at last, after several attempts, ranked 79th. So I now qualify for the next stage, which is America. As you can see, I now need to reach rank 60, and my current ranking is 79. Let's see how we get on. As you can see, the course is pretty much the same. Most of the graphics are the same. The background's a little bit different on the horizon to represent America. Otherwise it's the same. All the cars are rather blandly blue, apart from my own red car. Once again, I've had a crash which will eventually develop into a fire. I'll just proceed anyway and see how I get on. There's a nice long straight on this track where you can pass quite a lot of cars. I'm probably not going to make it past another 10 cars though. The sounds, as you'd expect, are pretty much just the sounds of car engines. I'm probably going to explode any second now. Oh, there we go, crashed. And no chance of making it up into beyond 60th position, I think. I'm running out of time now as well, in fact. I think I was on the home straight there, but I've run out of time. So I finished 73rd. As you can see, it shows me how far around the track I got. Right up to the finish line, but not quite close enough. And this time I will continue to show what happens when you continue. Basically, when you continue, you carry on the same track. You also retain your ranking from wherever you finished the first time around, so it actually gives you the chance to start higher up the positions, which makes it rather easier the second time around. Hopefully, anyway. So I've just crashed into a sign, but I'm in a qualifying position and I should now make it. Hopefully it's a race against my engine to try and get to the finish line. Oh, just made it there. Time was just about to run out, but after a couple of continues, I've now finally got past the USA level and onto the France. It does play a nice little tune between each level, but as you can see, I'm now already in the qualifying position for France, so it's just a matter of getting around the course without running out of time or crashing. It should be quite easy to qualify, which is a bit of a flaw in the game, that if you continue a couple of times on one course, it actually puts you in a nice position for the following ones. And look now, we've got a rather lackluster but still good attempt at a rainfall effect on the course. Not seen that on any other Commodore 64 game. They are at least trying to replicate the arcade game reasonably well, and yeah, it's not a bad job really. However much further I get now, it is quite an enjoyable game. They're doing a good job at trying to recreate the arcade version as best they can with the technology available. So all in all, I'd say it's definitely worth the $2.99 asking price. It's now just a case of seeing how much further through the game I can get. Things seem to be going pretty well here, and yeah, I've actually qualified quite easily there for the next course with 6 seconds to spare. And next up is the challenging Monaco course, and I only need to get a couple of places further up to qualify for that one. With a couple of continues on the USA stage, it actually makes it pretty easy going for the rest of the game. Not much more to say about the game itself. Pretty good at programming. I've crashed there. With pretty good programming, nice visuals, reasonable sound with nice little music effects between the stages. So not much more to say about the game. I'll just see how much further I get. There's a nice fire developing in my engine here, and a crash now means I probably won't get much further in the game. Quite the curves on the Monaco course. Not really a very good representation of Monaco, as I'm sure you know if you're an F1 fan. It actually does go through the city, but I have actually made it to the next level there as well, just in the nick of time as I was running out of time and slowing down, but I've got over the finish line. Rank 30. I only need to be qualifying position of 40, so now I get on to the next course, which is Germany. And again, already in a qualifying position. And once again, Germany proved quite simple, and I'm now ranked 12th and I only need to be in 30th place to qualify. And coming up next is Spain. This one looks quite difficult. And we get an obvious landscape change in the background there with all the mountains, and also the skies change to a darker sort of colour. So they are still putting some effort in. Bit dicey there, getting around that car. Oh, hit a tree. Probably not too good. Will I get to the end of the track before we run out of time? Probably not. Although this does look like it resembles a home straight. No. It's going to be close if I do make it. Just got over the finish line in time before I ran out of speed. And move on to the next course. As you can see, it's actually pretty easy once you get to the later stages. It actually gets easier rather than harder. Now here's Mexico. Let's see how I get on here. Mexico looks remarkably similar to Spain in the landscape stakes. So the only other thing I can say about the game is that the difficulty level is not pitched quite correctly, because the first two stages are actually quite tricky and later stages actually become relatively easy, albeit needing a couple of continues to get there. Woo! I'm now in first place, as you can see, but there's still cars in front of me, which doesn't make a lot of sense given that you only go around each course maybe 1 or 2 laps at most. I'm going to spin off and explode in a minute. There we go. I'm still in first place, and now those cars that I just passed while I was already in first place pass me, and my ranking drops down. So there is a bit of a glitch in the programming there, I think, but we'll let it off because overall it's a pretty good game. I've totally run out of things to say about it now, as you can probably guess, and I'm going to run out of time in a minute, and that'll do me, I think. I've got the high score. Oh, there is the finishing line. I've just sneaked over it again. And what course have we got left? Japan. Nice little bit of Japanese music. Cool, that looks difficult around those corners there. Okay, so I've got to finish in the top 3 to qualify. I think this is probably the last course, so you could see a completion of the game if I can make it round here. Oh, that's not a good start. That's a disaster, in fact. Probably going to run out of time before I get to the end of the course. And another crash. And another spin off. And I'm still plugging away, but it's not going to happen. So in the end, the Japanese course has seen me off. But it's been a good ride all in all. and I'll retire at that point. Just get my name in the high score table, of course, although I probably will get the opportunity to continue. Yeah, nowhere near. And that's the end of it all. So I got the high score, put my name in the high score table, and call it a day.
If you only knew the power of the dark side.
2, 1, 0.